get ready to sit back, relax, and open your mind. Welcome to Thinking Deeply with Dudes and Beer.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to this edition of Thinking Deeply with Dudes and Beer. I am Chris Jordan, your host. It's been a little while since I've done one of these, but I want to get back into the habit, especially now that I'm on the road so much. I do have time alone in my hotel room to sit back and think deeply. And I think it's important, especially with everything going on in our society in America right now, um, that we have these moments to pause, that we take this time to stop and think, not just about the state of our country, the state of our world, but our place within our country, our place within our world, our place within society itself, as well as how we take accountability for ourselves. That's such an important part of society. The taking accountability, the owning yourself. And this last week, in episode 165 of Dudes and Beer, I was talking about that with John Bound, and about how I was going to do this episode on failure and understanding failure, and not that, my wife and I have a term, love you baby. My wife Amy Jordan, host of the Yes But Why podcast on the HC Universal Network, but uh, we have a term that we use called steamy between us, and it's when you're kind of beating yourself up inside. A lot of people refer to it as stinking thinking. That inner voice that tells you, like, oh God, you're such a failure, you're such a horrible person. Um, and it's our ego talking, and it's our ego saying that, like, we should be better than something. It's our ego saying that we as people should be above something, but we know we're not. And because of that, we get a little steamy. We totally get to the point where we are completely and utterly engulfed in that thought, completely and utterly um, caught up with it, and we can think about nothing else. And that's a wrong way to approach failure. It really is. And it's hard to get past, it's hard to break past, it's hard to get through that barrier, and not beat yourself up over it, and to accept failure, and to accept failure proudly. Number one, this is key number one to accepting failure, folks. All right, we're just going to go ahead and get into it. Key number one to accepting failure is realizing that you would not have failed if you hadn't tried. All right, that in and of itself is a conquering. So when you look at your failure, realize that you failed because you tried something, because you actively got up, went out, and did something. You failed. That's okay. Do you realize how many people in the world do not get up, get out, and actively do something? They may go to their job on a daily basis, things like that, but they don't take initiative, like what I'm talking about. They aren't trying something new. They aren't trying to get out there. They're going through motions, and you know, that's 90% of the world is going through rote motion. I mean, that's what we spend years in school learning is wash, rinse, repeat, wash, rinse, repeat, wash, rinse, repeat. And then whenever you get out into the real world and you have a job where you push papers all day, or you sit behind a desk, or you answer phones, or you're in customer service, or you're in sales, uh, it's a wash, rinse, repeat process. Even in sales, you've still got the same approaches, you've still got the same opens, you've still got the same closes. It's still a wash, rinse, repeat process. But when you're getting out there and you're trying something new and you fail and you're striking out into new territory, that's okay. It's okay. And even in your daily rote process, if you fail, prime example of that. All right, prime example of that. And this is what I was explaining to John before the show the other day, and what I was explaining to my wife all of last night. Um, this show that I am presently on in Orlando, uh, I've done it before, but it was a couple of years ago. So sure, it's not in my mind. But my crew lead gave us sheets that have it didn't have wiring schematics on it necessarily, um, but it had a list of things to do for each place on the show. So whenever we got to certain booths, it was like, okay, these booths are supposed to be set up this way. And these theater booths where people come and give presentations were supposed to have two wires run to every TV. One of them goes to the podium where the person is presenting. The other comes from the general session where, when they're done presenting and general session starts, every theater acts like an overflow. So they hit input 2 on the TV and it shows the general session and brings the audio to the sound system. Pretty neat concept. Nobody has to go anywhere to catch the general session. Pretty cool. Now, myself and an extra hand went out to all of these theaters and we're fishing the cables. We're pulling up an HDMI that was run. We're pulling up power so that people can come behind us and put the monitors on the wall. Now, these are big monitors, folks. They aren't like 24-inch monitors. They're like 85-inch. Huge, like the size of a desk monitor. And uh, we did not pull the second wire through. It wasn't run. We were supposed to run it. It was on our list. My crew lead missed it. The assistant crew lead missed it. And I missed it. And the next day, when we came in for night shift, we had our meeting of things to do. And it came out that those wires were missed. And because they were missed, out of 20 guys on the day crew, they had to send 7 guys out to rewire those things. And it took a good 4 to 5 hours. So my mistake cost the company about 28 to 35 man hours of time. Um, that's a huge setback. Like, when you're talking the scope of a show of what we're doing, that's a huge setback. Um, and I stepped forward. He was like, it's a team failure. Everybody had the same paperwork, but I stepped forward and raised my hand. I was like, yes, we all had the paperwork. He missed it. He missed it. I missed it. But I was the one with hands physically on the cables. They were not. They were out doing other things. Myself and a hand were the ones physically out doing the cables. I will take the responsibility. I am the person who did that. And the reason I took the responsibility and owned that is, A, it was my fault. I was the one that was running cables. They weren't. It has nothing at all to do with them. I was the one that did it. Number two, it drives it into my head. Don't forget that. I will never at this point forget that every one of those monitors gets 2 cables. It will never happen. Because I owned it, and I pride myself on my work, and I pride myself on what I do, how I do it. So I will make a concerted effort to remember that second cable from here to all eternity. I will never forget that every monitor gets 2 cables. Um, and it, that that's the second part of owning your mistake. I mean, the first part is realizing that you had to strike out and do something. I had to strike out and do some work and do all that kind of stuff. I had to step up to the bat and swing to miss. You got to swing at a ball in order to miss. It's no use stepping up to the plate if you don't at least take a swing, folks. And that's half of what Dudes and Beer is about. That's half of what this show is about. Is the fact that we need to step up to the plate. We need to be the ones to do that. We need to be the ones to go that step further. And understanding that is what takes us to that next level. Understanding that is what gives us the next step, the next rung on the ladder, personally. And where that comes into society is accountability. And that's one of the most important things that we can have. You see, by owning your mistakes, by owning your failures, you are making yourself accountable for something. You are making yourself accountable for actions. You are making yourself accountable for repercussions, and you are understanding your place within the world just beyond arm's reach. All right. And your impact on people that you meet, you know, um, we have to take accountability for that. It's our personal accountability in these kind of situations, in admitting mistakes, in saying, yes, I'm the one that failed. I'm the one that did this. Um, Sorry, boss. I'm the one that didn't lock the register last night. Um, it's our doing that that sets the example for others around us to do the same thing and to show it's okay to fail. It's okay to be human. It's okay to forget something, to be absent of mind every once in a while. But more importantly than that, it's the accountability and the understanding that um, what's so necessary in our world and society right now is for people to be accountable for their actions. For people not to blame their actions on the society around them, for people not to blame their actions on, you know, somebody being mean or cruel to them. So many times we see the fact that, you know, that mass shootings, all these horrible things that are happening in our society are caused by people that do not know how to cope, that do not know how to understand their accountability in the world around them and their impact on the world around them. And even on a daily at work, we've talked about it before, the concept of a gentle smile. We live in such a harsh society now. It's full and rife with sarcasm, with cutting words. If you can't come up with the first put down, then you're weak of heart. Like it's just it's gotten to a crazy point in our world, and the question that we have to ask ourselves is, do we want to be part of that? Not do we want to be part of society. Of course, we want to be part of society. Without being part of society, we can't change society. We can't. But do we want to be a part of that mechanism that continues to feed the negative feedback loop? And by beating ourselves up for failures instead of accepting failures, we continue to become part of that negative feedback loop. We continue to add negativity to the world instead of positivity and progress. And that's the important thing, is the positivity and progress, the moving forward. um, Accept it, own it, move forward. I remember years ago when I first started having anxiety issues. I went to talk therapy for a while, as I first got onto medications, because they wanted to make sure medications were going well, stuff like that. And with my therapist, I remember discussing the way that my brain worked and the fact that I replay situations and what could I have done different, and I start seeing outcomes and I start seeing multiple outcomes. Then it becomes this fractal network of repercussion that could have happened and everything else. And I remember him going, "Wow, what a burden you've put on yourself." And I had never really seen that until Joe said it. Um, that I had chosen to burden myself with that. Um, and he was like, I want you to think about this. Whenever you see these situations happening that are causing you anxiety and everything else, remember that they are cursory. All right? Imagine yourself sitting in a car driving down the road and the railroad arm comes down. There's nothing you can do about the railroad arm, folks. You can try to run past the train if you want, but that's pretty dangerous. Really, you need to stop. So you're stopped. Your progress is stopped for a second. But the train's going to pass. Just watch the train pass. Understand that the train is there. It's blocking your way. That's all right. But you don't have to be angry about it. You don't have to be upset about it. You can just accept it and watch the train pass and then move on. Um, and it was such an amazing concept for someone who had studied philosophy, studied theology, even studied psychology and abnormal psychology. It had never really like that analogy worked perfectly well for me. The fact that yeah, just watch the train pass. And I used to have a really good friend that lived right near a train track, and yeah, it would annoy me trying to get to his house, trying to get to his house in a hurry for a game or something like that. And bam, there's the train. Dang it! Ugh. I'd get all upset. There's no use in getting upset. There's nothing you can do. It's there. It's happened. There's nothing you can do about the train. Just watch the train pass. And yeah, our failures come, our failures go. Um, but they too will pass. And if we learn to process them properly, if we learn to, like I said, A, realize the fact that you failed, B, own the fact that you failed, but that you would not have failed if you wouldn't have stepped up to the plate and taken a swing. Remember that positive part. You stepped up to the plate. You took a swing. Failure or not, you stepped up to the plate and took a swing. And that's the important part. That's the part that takes guts. That's the part that takes guts in the world, is the stepping up and taking a swing. Um, and when you learn to own your failures, when you learn to step up and say, yeah, I failed. Yeah, I didn't run that second cable. I ran every other cable. Every other thing came out perfect, but I failed on that, and I'm sorry. It'll never happen again. Um, Boom, done, over, band-aid, whoosh, quick and easy. And at the same time, I acknowledge the fact that I did a great job on everything else. Nothing else was an issue. That was the only thing that was missed. There was one oversight. And in a show in the scope of what we're doing, things get missed. It does tend to happen. So you have to understand that in the show of the world, in the show of life, things will get missed. Things will get looked over. That will happen. It's okay. It's okay for you to fail, folks. Um, Everybody does. Everybody fails. Everybody makes mistakes. That's what makes us human. That is the one thing that we all have alike. From the president to the pope to a man on the street to your butcher, your baker to the candlestick maker. Guaranteed we will all make a mistake in life. We will all mess something up. The question is, how do we handle it? How do we take care of it? How do we take care of ourselves during those moments? And with that, I want to kind of leave y'all with the topic of remember, own your failure, because the only reason you failed was because you got out there. You tried. You did something real, folks. So remember, while you're out there in the world, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. And until next time, can't be good at it. We'll see you on the next episode of Dudes and Beer, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to this installment of Thinking Deeply with Dudes and Beer. Tune in next time for more deep introspection, contemplative thought, and general musings on humanity and life. Right here on Thinking Deeply with Dudes and Beer. Like what you heard? Feel free to tune into the other content by Dudes and Beer on dudesandbeer.com. Our content is also available on the Spreaker market, as well as SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, and your favorite podcast app.